أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على مبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين. Assalamu alaikum, dear sisters and brothers. We welcome you today to our fourth night of the Ashura program here at the Islamic Center of America. Sheikh Amin's topic tonight will be about Imam al-Hussein and the Quran. So inshallah tonight's lecture will be beneficial to you all. We remind you all again that the bookstore is open all 10 nights. It's actually right in front of the hall here. The sisters have set up some books for you guys to look at, ranging from the Quran to about Imam Hussein's life to the Imams in general and so on, inshallah. The Mizan Institute is also having a course this Saturday and Sunday, July 13 and 14, titled Beyond Control, Navigating Questions of Free Will and Predetermination. So the essential question is, do I have free will or is everything I do predetermined? It's a very, very deep subject, but inshallah Sheikh Amin will help us in gathering the answers. To sign up, please visit their website at mizaninstitute.org/Dearborn or see one of us, the organizers. One of the cultural sentiments we are accustomed to in Ashura is giving sweets to feed others in honor of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. If you would like to sponsor a night of sweets or just sponsor a night of our lecture in general, please see one of the organizers. You can do so on behalf of one of your loved ones, inshallah. Tonight's program, tonight's lecture, and tonight's sweet donations are on behalf of our dear sister who left us way too soon, Sister al-Marhumi, Dr. Hajj Lamis Harb. Allah yarhamah. If we can please recite a salawat on her behalf and a fatiha. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Lamis was a dear friend of myself and many of us, and her death affected us in ways that we wouldn't even understand. When you see someone your age passing away that early with such a pure soul, good intentions, she used to frequent the mosque, it just makes you reconsider what you're doing in your life and how you are acting and how you're spending your time. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive her and have mercy upon her and all of our loved ones, inshallah. Before we start our lecture, I'd like to welcome our dear brother Sayyid Ali Rida Makki to recite some words of the Holy Quran, بعد الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
ثانية على حب الزهراء. ثالثة على حب الحسين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قاف والقرآن المجيد بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا ذلك رجع بعيد. قد علمنا ما تنقص الأرض منهم وعندنا كتاب حفيظ بل كذبوا بالحق لما جاءهم فهم في أمر مريج أفلم ينظروا إلى السماء فوقهم كيف بنيناها وزيناها وما لها من فروج والأرض مددناها وألقينا فيها رواسي وأنبتنا فيها من كل زوج بهيج تبصرة وذكرى لكل عبد منيب ونزلنا من السماء ماء مباركا فأنبتنا به جنات وحب الحصيد والنخل باسقات لها طلع نضيد رزقا للعباد وأحيينا به بلدة ميتا كذلك الخروج كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح وأصحاب الرس وثمود وعاد وفرعون وإخوان لوط وأصحاب الأيكة وقوم تبع كل كذب الرسل فحق وعيد أفعينا بالخلق الأول بل هم في لبس من خلق جديد ولقد خلقنا الإنسان ونعلم ما توسوس به نفسه ونحن أقرب إليه من حبل الوريد إذ يتلقى المتلقيان عن اليمين وعن الشمال قعيد ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد وجاءت سكرة الموت بالحق وجاءت سكرة الموت بالحق وجاءت سكرة الموت بالحق ذلك ما كنت منه تحيد ونفخ في الصور ذلك يوم الوعيد وجاءت كل نفس معها سائق وشهيد لقد كنت في غفلة من هذا فكشفنا عنك غطاءك فبصرك اليوم حديد صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Ahsan, brother Ali, beautiful recitation. Another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Masalli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Again, if I could please ask the brothers to move up just a couple rows, inshallah, to fill in the gaps. And now I welcome our dear and respected brother and servant of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Sheikh Amir Rastani, with 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
على حب الزهراء
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. So we have a very, very famous hadith that we have all heard, the hadith of Thaqalain, which speaks about the 2 weighty things that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left behind, and how he said that these 2 will not be separated until they go back to him in Jannah. If the Prophet is telling us that he left these 2 weighty things, which are Kitabullah, and we believe that he said the second one is his Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. If he is saying this, and we sometimes call out others because they have neglected the Ahlul Bayt part, we as Shia, we as lovers of Ahlul Bayt, have to make sure that we follow the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt in regards to Kitabullah. Otherwise, we don't want to be practically people who have neglected the other weighty thing, which is the Quran. Think about it. We're always upset that those who are not Shia, they neglected the Ahlul Bayt. We say, you neglected one of the 2 weighty things that the Prophet left behind, which was the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. You neglected them. We're upset at that, but at the same time, practically sometimes, when we look at ourselves, we see that the relationship we're supposed to have with both of the weighty things is not there. Why? Because we're lacking in regards to the more weightier thing according to some hadiths, which is Kitabullah, the Quran. This is something that we don't believe in necessarily. We don't believe that the Quran is not important. But if you paid attention, I said practically, sometimes it looks like, yeah, we are neglecting it. I'll give you an example. This is something that comes up every now and then. How many of us can, although this is not important, this information is not important that I'm about to ask about, and doesn't determine anything, doesn't mean too much, but it's just a sign. How many of us can name the first 10 surahs of the Quran by name? I mean, we can do the first one is Fatiha for sure. Yeah. Second one is Baqarah for sure. But then as we go down the list slowly, yeah, well, we won't know, like, what's number 4 now? What's number 5? Well, some of us who are really Shia will know number 5, because number 5 is the one that talks about Al-Yawm Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum, Surah Ma'idah, right? What about 6? What about 7? And so on. Once again, this is not something that's that important. I'm just trying to say, a Shia will be able to tell you all of the new latmiyas by this reciter, right? But might not know the name of these surahs, for example. This is just a sign that, yeah, we haven't really taken the Quran that serious. If a person is really engaged with the Quran, then what will happen is that they will remember some of these names at least. I want to speak about, inshallah, today, the Imam's love for the Quran, and how that's going to be highlighted for us is that how the Imam would use verses of the Quran in his speech. Now, we're going to be talking about Imam Hussein and how he would use verses here and there, but this is something that the entire Ahlul Bayt would do. They would purposely inject verses of the Quran in their speech all the time. Well, me being a lover and follower of these Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, when I see that they're in love with something called the Quran, then I'm going to also be interested in the Quran. And my love is not going to be limited to doing latmiyya for them, or only coming for like 10 days of the year to majalis. If I can do 10 days of majalis per year for Imam Hussein in the 1 or 2 months of Muharram and Safar, then that means that probably outside of Muharram and Safar, where there's about 10 months, I can do 1 or 2 programs. I can sit down and listen to 1 or 2 lectures or classes or attend some Mizan courses, yeah, on the Quran. Am I right? On the Quran. Why not? And so I want to share with you 2 categories of how the Imam would use verses in his speech. Number 1, verses when he would use when he was answering others, or even shutting other people's mouths. You'll see who, some of these enemies of Allah. That's one category. Another category is no, not when he was answering others, but on different occasions, yeah, just for the blessing of it, maybe he would add verses of the Quran, or for the people to know what's going through his heart. When you use a verse of the Quran to get a message across, a normal message even, it is, they say, awqa' fi nafs. It settles on the heart easier for those who hear it. And then if we have time towards the end, I'll add one more thing as well. Verses of Quran that I can think of that will provide us as proof for why we remember Imam Hussein so much. If we get to that, inshallah. Let's see if we get to that. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Now we're going to have some history as well, because I'm going to share with you stories where Imam Hussein is reciting verses of Quran. And so I want this to be seen as a side thing as well, something on the side where we cover some history as well. So in one of these stories, we're talking about cases where the Imam would answer the people with Quran. In one of these stories, you'll have a person by the name of Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As. All right. Hopefully, some of us at least know who Amr bin al-As is. Amr bin al-As, he's the mastermind behind saving Muawiyah's life in the Battle of Siffin. Okay? This, hopefully a lot of us are aware of this part of the story of the Battle of Siffin. What happened was that the army of Imam Ali is getting closer and closer through Malik al-Ashtar, getting closer and closer to Muawiyah himself. They were taking over. The army of Imam Ali alayhi salam was doing the job, getting it done. They were getting closer and closer to the tent of Muawiyah. Muawiyah is feeling the heat now. And so he turns to the mastermind Amr, that they say is one of the, I think, 4 most cunning of the Arab, they say. Okay. This Amr, he has his own story, and how he was known to be very smart and cunning. He figured out a way. I don't want to get into the details right now. He figured out a way. Think about it. Figured out a way to get Muawiyah out of this situation. And not only that, turned the tables against Imam Ali. Now, according to some accounts, 20,000 of the army of Imam Ali that wanted Muawiyah gone, all of a sudden the tables turned. These people, instead of letting Imam Ali finish the job of Muawiyah, they turned against Imam Ali and they said, if you don't stop the battle right now, we will kill you, O Ali. 20,000, think about it. And Ali has no choice but to tell Malik al-Ashtar, come back. Malik is like, no, we're almost done. Let us finish the job. He says, no, you don't understand. If you don't come back, your own leader is going to be killed. And so the battle stopped, and the whole story of the Hakamiyya and all of that took place, which we don't want to get into right now. This Amr bin al-As, this troublemaker, we do not like him as Shia at all. This Amr has a son by the name of Abdullah. So Abdullah bin Amr al-As. This Abdullah, he's one of those spiritual ones. Okay? One of them spiritual ones. The ones where their head is a little crooked and they're probably looking down all the time and looking up to the sky every now and then looking back down again. One of them ones. Okay? Abdullah bin Amr al-As, he's known for his spirituality. And about his spirituality, like they'll say that, he also partook in the Battle of Siffin. So you're like, okay, he's very spiritual. He must have been on the right side. It's like, no, he was on his father's side, which is Muawiyah's side. His father, Amr, that cunning man, he was on his side. But he says, I didn't shoot an arrow even. What did I do? I just carried the flag and didn't shoot an arrow or use a sword. Okay? So think about it. I can carry the flag of the enemy of God, the enemy of Islam, the enemy of Imam Ali alayhi salam, but as long as I don't shoot an arrow or draw a sword, I'm good. Guys, I'm saying this so we're careful in this day and age, in this part of the world where we are, not to get too comfortable thinking, this is, this is my country. It is our country, I mean, I like things here too. As a kid growing up, I liked sports. I liked fishing. Grew up in North Carolina. The weather, the trees, all that good stuff. It's all. But the dhulm is something you cannot turn a blind eye to. So I'm not going to go to the point where I say this is my country, and so I'm okay with a lot of things that happen here. And this is the flag. I hold the flag. I love the flag. Here, let me kiss the flag. It's not like that either. I have issues with the things that are happening in the name of this country as well. It's fine. No one said that just because I'm living here that I have to be okay with everything that goes on here. No. Now, this guy though, Abdullah, he's one of those ones. He says, no. As long as I'm not the one hurting somebody, it's okay if I, wave the flag of the place where is hurting people. And so he's waving the flag in Siffin, according to this account, but he didn't shoot an arrow. Because he's spiritual. And his head is to the side. Alright? We have to be careful about these things. Spirituality, is not just determined through just the zahir and the outward appearance of someone. No, there's a lot more to it. You can't carry the flag of Muawiyah's army and say, I was neutral. No, that's not how it works. He's the one, they say, that after Ammar bin Yasir, that grand companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was killed in Siffin, reminded his father, he's like, oh, Pops, we're in trouble. Pops is like, why? It's like, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever is the killer of Ammar is going to be the fi'a baghiyah, the ones who are transgressing, the ones who are on the wrong side. And so his dad was like, don't worry, we got this too. And he figured out how to put the blame on Ali. He's like, who brought Ammar to this battle? Ali ibn Abi Talib brought him, so it's his fault that he got killed, so he's fi'atul baghiyah. Anyway, he's the one who informed his father that, didn't the Prophet say that Ammar is going to be killed by the ones who are on the wrong side? But it's sad, brothers and sisters. I was watching one of these scholars in Morocco, and they're not from the Shia, of course. And he was saying that look at these individuals. This Abdullah, such a spiritual person, he gave his youth to the Prophet. So why do some people say they were fighting each other over rulership? And they're trying to justify or find an explanation as to why in Siffin or in Jamal, companions of the Prophet were fighting each other. For us, the Shia, it's easy. We say, look, it doesn't matter if you're a companion of the Prophet. Shaitan can still get the best of you. What are you talking about? But for some of them, they're like, no, we don't understand. Look, these people, they gave their youth for the Prophet. How can they fight over worldly things like rulership? So what are they fighting over then in Jamal? What are they fighting over in Siffin? What do you mean? What are you talking about? It's crazy. I've said this before elsewhere. Some of the scholars of Wahhabiyya, you find them, they're like, yeah. They would fight each other in the day, and at nighttime they would go and visit each other because they loved each other. I'm like, bro, what you smoking, man? What do you mean? Like they're fighting in the day, and then at night they go and visit each other and see how they're doing? What are you talking about? Like what kind of la la land is this? Too much benefit of the doubt? Like I don't understand. Like, hey, you were fighting good today. You killed my brother today. Good job. Like, what are you talking about? It's like you can't flip a switch or something, you know? It's not like you flip the switch. In the day we're fighting each other. At night we go and visit each other. Yo, how did that blow feel that I gave you? Let me see the scar. That kind of thing. Anyway. It's sad that he says that how could they be fighting over these things? Anyway, this Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As, and this is his report card that I just shared with you. One time he sees Imam Hussein alayhi salam walking by. This is very important, brothers and sisters, because it shows that love is not enough. Acknowledging greatness is not enough. Rather, what we have to do is, when we see greatness, to follow the footsteps of greatness. Inshallah. Just because I acknowledge it that doesn't mean anything. Look at this. It says, مَرَّ الْحُسَيْنُ عَلَى Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As. One day, Imam Hussein was passing by this Abdullah bin Amr, this very spiritual person. What did Abdullah say? Abdullah said something that any spiritual person will say when he sees greatness. فقال عبد الله من أحب أن ينظر إلى أحب أهل الأرض إلى أهل السماء فلينظر إلى هذا المجتاز. Whoever wants, this Abdullah turns to his boys and he's like, whoever wants to see the most beloved of the people of the earth in the eyes of the people of the sky. I'll repeat that. Whoever wants to see who the people of the heavens, the angels, the sulaha, whoever wants to see who the angels love the most on the face of the earth, look at this person who's passing right now. Okay? Look at this person who's passing right now. That's going to be the most beloved. And he was pointing to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. But then he says something after that which messes everything up. Like if you are such a spiritual person and you acknowledge greatness so well, you shouldn't be having to say this line after. Look what he says. He says, وَمَا كَلَّمْتُهُ مُنْذُ لَيَالِي صُفِّينَ. But we haven't spoken since the nights of Siffin and the battle of Siffin. Well, duh, I wonder why you haven't. He doesn't want to speak to you. Imam Hussein doesn't want to speak to you because you were fighting his dad in Siffin. I'm a super spiritual person. I was in the camp of Muawiyah, but I didn't shoot an arrow. But I didn't do anything wrong to hurt anybody. Yeah, but you were in the wrong side, Habib. That's not how it works. I'm saying this for you and I today. Oh, you know what? I'm here, but I didn't say anything wrong. Yeah, but you didn't say what you were supposed to say either, which is the right thing to say. وَمَا كَلَّمْتُهُ مُنْذُ اللَّيَالِ صِفِّينَ. I don't know, I feel like Abdullah's kind of confused. Why doesn't Imam Hussein speak to me since Siffin? Because you were fighting on the wrong side. فأتى به أبو سعيد الخدري إلى الحسين فقال الحسين. So this Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, which is a very famous companion of the Prophet, it says he brought Abdullah bin Amr al-As, he brought him to Hussein. He's like, oh, okay, so you like him, you acknowledge his greatness, let's go to him. Takes him to Imam Hussein. فقال الحسين أتعلم أني أحب أهل الأرض إلى أهل السماء. Oh, Abdullah, so you do know and acknowledge that I am the most beloved of the people of the face of the earth to the people of the sky. You understand that, huh? He's like, yeah. وَتُقَاتِلُنِي وَأَبِي يَوْمَ صِفِّينَ. But then you fight me and my father on the day of Siffin. Like Imam Hussein didn't say this, but I'm going to say it like, you dumb. وَاللَّهِ إِنَّ أَبِي لَخَيْرٌ مِنِّي. You think that I am the most beloved, that might understand that my father is greater than me. What are you talking about? If you acknowledge greatness, then you shouldn't be fighting on the other side. You should be on the side of greatness. Come on, do the math. And it's not some crazy math, it's 2 plus 2. فَاسْتَعْذَرَ. Look at the excuse. Now you would think that this person would shut their mouth and just be like, I'm sorry. But you see, brothers and sisters, what did Shaitan do when Allah said, hey, you got problems, bro? You didn't do sajda when you're supposed to do sajda. Shaitan didn't say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, it's my weakness, it's my shortcoming. Shaitan busted out with logic in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? You don't try to flex your logic in front of Allah because I think He has more wisdom and knowledge than me. Shaitan, though, he said, no. خَلَقْتَنِي بِالنَّارِ خَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. You created me from fire. Fire is higher. Yeah? That's a rhyme too, you know what I'm saying? Fire is higher. Fire is higher, I'm not going to do sajda. That's what Shaitan, instead of saying, I'm sorry, this guy does the same thing, Abdullah. He says, you fought on the wrong side. You know what his answer was? He tried to flex a little bit of spirituality and knowledge. He's like, but Imam Hussein, let me tell you something. إِنَّ النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلَهِ قَالَ لِي أَطِعْ أَبَاكَ. Rasulullah told me when he was alive, make sure that you obey your father no matter what. And he probably had a subha in his hand, like, subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. Because he's spiritual. What did the Imam Hussein say? He said, well, if you are going to narrate and quote the Prophet, then let me quote the Quran itself. And so this is where I want to say that Imam Hussein is using Quran now. أَمَا سَمِعْتَ قَوْلَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. That don't you remember the verse of the Quran that when the Quran tells you that if your parents tell you to do something wrong like shirk, then you're not supposed to obey them? Like, come on, man. This sounds more like an excuse than anything else. And if you're going to flex Rasulullah, let me flex also as his grandson. Have you not heard that Rasulullah said, إِنَّمَا الطَّاعَةُ فِي الْمَعْرُوفِ? That only and only there's obedience when it's in line with ma'roof and good, not when it's in line with evil. What do you mean my dad told me that? If your dad tells you to go and do shirk, will you do it because Rasulullah told you to obey your father? What are you talking about? وَقَوْلُهُ لَا طَاعَةَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ فِي مَعْصِيَةِ الْخَالِقِ. Don't you remember what Rasulullah has also said, that there is no obedience of the creation if it equals disobeying the Creator. So, Abdullah, he quotes the Holy Prophet with a line. What does Imam Hussein do? He comes back with a verse of Quran and the other sayings by the Holy Prophet. Really, we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that a person will use the Quran, use the sayings of the Prophet like this. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Imam Hussein alayhi salam quotes a verse of the Quran here and shuts this guy up. Another story, there's a person by the name of Muhammad bin Ash'ath. So let's talk a little history again. There's a person by the name, because when you want to know somebody, you got to know their daddy. For this one, his daddy was Amr bin al-As. Abdullah, his dad was Amr bin al-As. There's another one, Muhammad bin Ash'ath. Who's his daddy? Ash'ath bin Qais. Okay, let's talk about Ash'ath bin Qais a little bit. Ash'ath bin Qais was problematic. He was on the right side, but apparently the heart was on the wrong side. Battle of Siffin again. Let's go there. Ash'ath bin Qais is one of the commanders of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But when that stuff happened, when the battle stopped, slowly people started finding out later on that, whoa, one of the reasons why the battle stopped was, yes, Amr bin al-As and his trickery from the outside, but there was an element from the inside as well that caused issues. And that was none other than Ash'ath bin Qais. Ash'ath bin Qais, his children were in Karbala against Imam Hussein. Oh, and if you want to know who his daughter is, no big deal. His daughter is Ja'da, the one who poisoned Imam al-Hasan. So you can tell there's a problem here. Not too big a problem, but there's a problem here. So Ash'ath himself was a suspicious individual that we believe, yeah, he was a problem and a troublemaker actually, and was exposed later on. But then you look at his children and you're like, wow, they are way at the other side of the spectrum. This Muhammad bin Ash'ath, he's the one who arrested Muslim bin Aqil in Kufa. And he promised Muslims safety, but later on they went against that. On the day of Ashura, it says he rejected the Imam's link with the Prophet. He said, Hussein, you keep saying that you are linked to the Prophet. What are you talking about? There is no link. Stop acting like there's a link between you and the Prophet. And he questioned why the Imam needs to be respected because of this. What did the Imam answer? He said, you know what your problem is? You just can't acknowledge, you can't accept the fact that we have such a link. You have a problem with Allah Himself. And then he recited this verse, Inna Allah astafa Adama wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alameen. We are Al Ibrahim at the end of the day. We go back to there. You might have a problem that my mother Fatima is my link to the Holy Prophet. Well, there are others like Prophet Isa alayhi salam who gets linked to Ibrahim and others through their mother Maryam. You see, he uses a verse of the Quran again. What's Muhammad bin Ash'ath going to say to this? Allah has chosen us. You're jealous. What can I do? Inna Allah astafa Adam. He doesn't need to say anything else. On another occasion, in the palace of the governor of Medina, initially when Muawiyah died, yes, they say that Imam Hussein was sitting with Abdullah bin Zubayr. Abdullah bin Zubayr, the troublemaker, later on, he caused issues. He was sitting with Abdullah bin Zubayr. Someone comes and says, you have been summoned, O Hussein, to the governor's palace, the governor of Medina. It says that Imam Hussein told Abdullah, he said, I think that Muawiyah has died. I think I know what's going on. And so he goes to the palace. And sure enough, they say Muawiyah has died. Yazid says you have to give bay'ah. And of course, this is where the whole story of Karbala began, right? Brothers and sisters, we know about this. Here, the governor says, give me bay'ah. Imam Hussein says, give me some time. Tomorrow I'll come and we'll talk about it. And he wants to leave. And the governor says, okay. And the governor knows Imam Hussein is not a liar. He's not a coward. He's not going to go and not come back. He'll be back. But as Imam Hussein wants to make his way out of the palace, there's another weirdo by the name of Marwan bin al-Hakam. We have major issues as Shia with Marwan. Major issues. I don't want to get into his story. Him and his daddy, al-Hakam. Hakam. Such a problem, such a nuisance that the Prophet kicked him out of Medina. After they were forcefully became Muslim, the Prophet kicked him out of Medina because the guy was just a problem. Like he would go and spy through the keyhole, according to some accounts, or whatever hole there was in the door of the Prophet and look inside the Prophet's house. Like, come on, dude. It reached a point where this guy was such a nuisance, the Prophet kicked him out. Once the Prophet passed away, they tried to bring him back. Abu Bakr said, I'm not going to bring him in. Umar in his time didn't bring him back to Medina either. He was Banu Umayyah. Hakam was Banu Umayyah. But guess who brought him back in? Uthman brought him back in because they're relatives. And so he brought him back in. The son of this Hakam is Marwan. This guy got problems too. Us as Shia, we have major issues here with him. But because he is deemed as a Sahabi, yeah, you're not allowed to question what they do. Anyway, this Marwan, he was in that gathering according to the historical accounts we have. As Imam Hussein is making his way out, Marwan says, no. Hold on to this Hussein, because if you let him go, you won't get him back unless you spill blood. Keep him now. And I think in some of the accounts it even says it's get bay'ah from him now or behead him right now. Imam Hussein turns around and says some things to him. And he ends it with this. He tells Marwan, get out of here. You are rich, you're filth. While we are a family of tahara. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said about us, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. صَلُّوا عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ. What's Marwan going to say in response to this? He can't say anything. You know where you're from. You know what your mother used to do. These kinds of things. The Imam points these out. Yeah? Points these things out. Why? Because right now is the time to expose the negative aspects of the enemy of Allah. The Imam's not going to expose somebody who has problems if they're just a normal person. But if a person like this needs to be sat in their place, the Imam will sit them in their place. God knows how many times the Imams would point out the negative aspects of certain individuals who would reach beyond what they were supposed to and talk about things they're not supposed to and say things they're not supposed to. The Imams would sit them down. So these are some examples of the Imam using verses of the Quran, answering people, putting them in their place. Because once you recite a verse of the Quran, they can't say anything back. They can't even say the Prophet said something else though, because the Prophet's not going to ever say anything against what the Quran says. That's that. Now I want to share with you some examples of verses that the Imam would recite on different occasions, not answering people, to show that, look, this is what I'm after, this is what I have in mind, this is what's going through my heart. So for example, it says that when Imam Hussein was leaving Medina, as he was leaving Medina, you all know, he was forced to leave. They want bay'ah from him. He's worried for his life. He has to protect his life. He knows if he stays there, he's going to get in trouble. So he has to leave. He lets the people know that this is what's going through my heart, but through a verse of the Quran. And so it says, as he was leaving, it says he recited the famous verse of Surah Qasas, verse 21. The verse that talks about Musa when he was leaving Egypt, when he got in trouble. Musa alayhi salam, he got into a scuffle with somebody, one of Fir'aun's troops who was hurting one of the good people of Musa. And so he got into a scuffle. And they say Musa was pretty strong, so he punched him or something, and the guy not only got knocked out, as they used to say back in our day, when they wouldn't show blood on the cartoons and stuff, back then Dragon Ball Z, they would say he sent him to another dimension. In other words, he killed the guy. Okay? He killed the guy. Back in the 90s, the cartoons, they wouldn't say, oh, this person got killed. They would say he got sent to another dimension. Yeah, he did. We call it the barzakh. Okay? Anyway, Musa knocked him out of this dimension. The guy died, and Musa got in trouble. So he has to leave Egypt for Madian, the city of Madian. So the verse of the Quran says, Musa, when he left, but he left in a state of fear. Imam Hussein recited the same verse when he was leaving Medina. فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ قَالَ رَبِّ نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Musa said, Imam Hussein recited the verse that Musa left his city خَائِفًا, with fear, out of fear. يَتَرَقَّبْ, waiting for the worst to happen, looking over his shoulder. You know, when you're worried about something, you're always looking over your shoulder. قَالَ رَبِّ نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Oh Allah, save me from the zalimeen, from the oppressors. So here you can tell, okay, that's what's going through Imam Hussein's heart. But when he recites a verse like this, yeah, he's letting us know that look, just like Prophet Musa had to leave with fear, I have to leave with this fear too. Which, let me open a parenthesis here, we don't have time to get into it, which shows there's a good fear and there's a bad fear. There's a fear that is wise, and there's a fear that is condemned and frowned upon. Yeah, Imam Ali has some sayings about this as well. This idea of never have fear, never have fear meaning always know in deep down in your heart that Allah is the one who is taking care of my affairs. I will do my best of what I need to do. But fearing over one's life is something that's okay if you're not supposed to put your life on the line. Some people think that no matter what, the only time that you have ikhlas or you're doing what's right is if you're getting yourself in trouble. Not all the time. That's not the case all the time. Let's not look at things black and white. There are some khawfs that are justified. Here Imam Hussein says, I'm leaving with this fear, according to this account at least. Why? Imam Hussein, what are you afraid about? Stay in Medina and get killed. He's like, no, I have to preserve my life as much as I can. Yeah, once things reach a point where there's no escape, I'll fight back if I need to. And that happened in Karbala. Alright, so this is what happens when he's leaving. When he eventually arrives in Mecca, he left Medina and arrived in Mecca, he recited the next verse of Surah Qasas. فَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْقَاءَ مَدْيَنَ. That Prophet Musa alayhi salam, it says when he moved towards Madyan, that city that he sought refuge in, قَالَ عَسَى رَبِّي أَن يَهْدِيَنِي سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. That insha'Allah, Allah is going to show me what I need to do from here on. And so Imam Hussein also, when he reached Mecca, recited this verse. فَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْقَاءَ مَدْيَنَ. Letting us know that, okay, I am here now in Mecca, and now I hope that I can figure something out of what I need to do here. I figured out what I needed to do in Medina. What was it? There was a fear of my life, so I had to leave Medina. Now I'm going to Mecca. Let's see what happens and unfolds here, and then we will see what we need to do from here onwards. And as we all know, he eventually had to leave Mecca as well. On the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein delivers a sermon. لَمَّا رَأَى صُفُوفَ أَهْلِ الْكُوفَةِ بِكَرْبَلَاء. When he saw the rows of the enemies on the day of Ashura, كَاللَّيْلِ وَالسَّيْلِ, like the night. It was dark. Dark in the sense of so many troops that are standing opposite to him. Like the night. It's dark. And not just the night that's dark, but like a flood that كَالسَّيْلِ. Layl and Sayl. These people, it wasn't like 500 or 1,000 of them. It's like a flood of people. All these swords are against them. He delivers a sermon and he said, فَنِعْمَ الرَّبُّ رَبُّنَا وَبِئْسَ الْعِبَادُ أَنْتُمْ. Our Lord is a good Lord, but you are bad servants of this Lord. أَقَرَرْتُمْ بِالطَّاعَةِ. You proclaimed your obedience to Allah. آمَنْتُمْ بِالرَّسُولِ. You embraced the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ رَجَعْتُمْ إِلَى ذُرِّيَّتِهِ وَعِتْرَتِهِ. But then you turned around and went to his family and his descendants and progeny, تُرِيدُونَ قَتْلَهُمْ, while you are pursuing their killing. And then he recites a verse of Quran. لَقَدْ اسْتَحْوَذَ عَلَيْكُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ فَأَنْسَاكُمْ ذِكْرَ اللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. He said, you know what's wrong? Shaitan got the best of you. It's not whether or not I have the right beliefs. I believe in Allah. I believe in the Prophet. But then I go against his progeny. Not just go against them. I want to kill them. This isn't going to do you any good. You know what's wrong with you? لَقَدْ اسْتَحْوَذَ عَلَيْكُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ. Shaitan has overtaken you. You showed a vulnerability. The people of Kufa, they had a love of dunya. They had love of Hussein, some of them even. But you have love of dunya too. Allah is going to see if He can refine those who are willing to make the right decision and leave dunya for Hussein, and some who will leave Hussein for dunya. These tests have to take place. That's what we're here for, brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah, we're not living back then. If we were believing back then, I don't know how many of us, including myself, would pass the test. It's easy 1400 years later to say, oh, labbaika ya Hussein, I love you Hussein. But when the time comes, when I have to answer Allah's call, when my parents get me upset, but I want to slam the door, or I want to say something bad, inshallah we'll have a topic on parents, guys. So don't come on that day. Okay? I just want the parents to be here on that day. Because ignorance is bliss. Psych. Ignorance is not bliss. On the day of judgment, you can't be like, oh Allah, I didn't know. Like, no, Shaykh Amin spoke on that day about parents. Yeah, so make sure you come on that date, but I'm not going to tell you which day it is. It might be tomorrow. So the Imam here, he says, Shaitan got the best of you. Back then, they loved Hussein, some of them, but they loved dunya too. Allah's going to give you a test. You got to choose, my friend. فَتَبًّا لَكُمْ, woe unto you, وَلِمَا تُرِدُونَ, and what you're after, Imam Hussein said. إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The Imam said, to Allah we belong, to Allah we will return. هَؤُلَاءِ قَوْمٌ كَفَرُوا بَعْدَ إِيمَانِهِمْ فَبُعْدًا لِلْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Once again, a verse of Quran here. He mentions. So you see, he's letting people know that, look, this is Hussein, the Quran. The speaking Quran as if this is who you're killing. Whenever one of the companions of Imam Hussein would fall, what would happen was the Imam, they say, would go next to this person's body as they're breathing their last. Once again, he would recite Quran. مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبَهُ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. There are among the believers, this is Surah Ahzab verse 23. There are among the believers many men who have been true to the covenant they made with Allah. Of them, some have submitted their souls to martyrdom, but there are others who haven't yet and are still alive. And they are wanting to join their brothers in paradise. And they have not in the least changed their mind about their covenant. So think about it. A person puts their life on the line for Imam Hussein and is now dying as the blood is leaving their body. Imam Hussein comes to their side. One of the Thaqalain. Now Imam Hussein can come and say, I love you, thank you so much, and that would be great too, but he recites Quran next to you, the other Thaqalain. So both of the Thaqalain upon death, what more could these people ask for? And the verse that the Imam chooses is a verse that's letting them know you fulfilled your covenant. And I hate to say it like this, but it's as if the Imam is saying, good for you, I even envy you. Because I'm one of the ones who still hasn't made it yet. You made it, but I'll be there in a little bit of time. Wow. The Imam could have just said, I love you, thank you so much, but he doesn't. He recites verses of the Quran again. It's just that the Imams, they loved the Quran. Why should we not love it? Imam Ali says, the ajaib, the wonders of this Quran are never ending. And then someone turns around and says, oh, we know what the Quran says already. It was very sad. One time, a brother said this somewhere. And as a Shia, as a person who was in charge of some of the Shia associations in some of these places even, it was very worrisome hearing this. He said, we as the Shia, we don't really need the Quran, he said, because we have the Ahl Bayt. I was like, bro, stop. The Imams are telling us that we go to the Quran. What are you talking about? And then he's like, let me explain what I mean. What I mean by this is that we don't need the Quran because they are the living Quran, number one. And number two, if we do need the Quran, we need it so that we can prove the Ahlul Bayt. That's all we need the Quran for. Anyway, when Ali al-Akbar was going to the battlefield, Imam Hussein recites the same verse, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوحًا وَآلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَآلَ عِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Letting people know that this is Al Ibrahim going. This is us. Now, it's not just that. Let's move on to the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That even the head, this journey started from Medina with فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ. It started with Quran, And then this journey ended with the head of Hussein, according to these accounts, reciting the Quran. Let me share with you one of these stories here. It says, وَلَمَّا أَصْبَحَ عُبَيْدُ اللَّهِ بن زِيَادٍ بَعَثَ بِرَأْسِ الْحُسَيْنِ. In the morning, Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, after they had sent the head of Imam Hussein to Kufa, he sent the head of Hussein, فَدِيرَ بِهِ فِي سِكَكِ الْكُوفَةِ كُلِّهَا. They took this head around in all of the alleys of Kufa. Like they made sure every single one. فِي سِكَكِ الْكُوفَةِ كُلِّهَا. All of them. Everyone has to see this. وَقَبَائِلِهَا, and all those tribes outside of Kufa even apparently. So now, there's a person by the name of Zayd bin Arqam, this old companion of Rasulullah that's there. It says that he says that مُرَّ بِهِ عَلَيَّ, that this head was also passed by me, and apparently he was in his home. And I think I read somewhere that he was in like the second floor of this home or something, because the spear was up high and the head passes by the window. وَأَنَا فِي غُرْفَةٍ فَلَمَّا حَاذَانِي, once it passed by me, سَمِعْتُهُ يَقْرَأْ أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا. Surah Al-Kahf. That this head, I heard from it recite. Now this is a Quran that some people will be able to hear, not all people. That this head is reciting this verse of Surah Al-Kahf. That do you think, there's a verse in the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, that do you think that the story of the members of the Kahf, Ashab al-Kahf, وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا, that these are our very wondrous signs. Okay? This is a verse of the Quran. Do you think, O Prophet, that this story of those youth that slept in the cave for 309 years, 309 years they slept in the cave, they fell asleep, they didn't know they had actually died and come back to life again. Or maybe their sleep was very long. Their sleep took long. It's like they died. For 309 years the Quran says they were in that cave. They were asleep actually, not dead. And the Quran says we would turn them to their sides even. 309 years. Sounds like the sleep of some of the people that I know. And so they woke up after 309 years. What was their story? They went there, they were hiding from the tyrannical ruler of their time that was forcing them to denounce their faith and go against Tawheed and oneness of God. And so they went and hid in a mountain, in a cave, and they said, we're not going to denounce our faith. And so Allah protected them in this way. Anyway, it's a very interesting story. It doesn't happen often that people sleep for 309 years and then wake up. But what happened was, this happened with them. The Quran says, do you think this is a strange and wondrous story? In other words, this is not the most wondrous thing we have. Now, the head of Imam Hussein is reciting this verse as it passes by. Zayd bin Arqam says, I heard this verse. That do you think the Ashab al-Kahf was a strange story? And then Zayd says, I said that in response to the head of Imam Hussein. فَقَفَ وَاللَّهِ شَعْرِي. Number one, it says, the hair on my body stood up. Yeah. وَنَادَيْتْ, and I called out, رَأْسُكْ وَاللَّهِ يَبْنَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أَعْجَبُ وَأَعْجَبُ. That no, your head, O Hussein, is more wondrous than the story of the Ashab al-Kahf. Now here, I want to share with you why it seems, and there might be other reasons, I want to share with you like a couple things. What is it that makes the story of Hussein so wondrous more than the story of Ashab al-Kahf? What happened with them? The Ashab al-Kahf, they were told to denounce their faith. They left it and they went and hid in a cave. They fell asleep for 309 years. They woke up after that. Everything was safe and sound. They were honored. But Hussein had to denounce his faith through the bay'ah of Yazid. He refused and left. What was his fate though? It wasn't the fate of Ashab al-Kahf. Wallah ra'suka a'jab yabna Rasulillah. And another take on this whole thing is, these Ashab al-Kahf, when they came back to life, they passed away a little bit after that. It's not like they lived another 100 years. Maybe they lived for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, I don't know exactly, but it wasn't a long time after that, and Allah eventually took them to Himself again. The people were arguing, the Quran tells us this story, they were arguing over what should we do with their graves now. Yeah? Some said, let's build a monument. Some said this. Some said, لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. We're going to build a masjid, a place of worship of God over them. Well, guess what? Does anyone know where that masjid is now today? No, we don't know where Ashab al-Kahf are buried. There are some guesses, but we don't know the exact place. Well, Hussein alayhi salam also did not denounce his faith. And he eventually died in Karbala, and they built a shrine over him, and guess what? As we say in Farsi, as I said the first night, Karbala, Ka'beh dil-has Khuda midana. The Hussein's shrine in Karbala is the Kaaba of the heart. Allah knows. Yeah. If the story of the Ashab al-Kahf ended with a shrine like that, the story of Hussein ended with a shrine much greater. Yes, Hussein, your story is a'jab, is greater and more wondrous than the story of Ashab al-Kahf. Point being, even the head of Hussein alayhi salam is reciting Quran, and finally it says لأنهم لما صلبوا رأس الحسين عليه السلام على الشجرة, when they hung it on the tree, it was heard from that same head again that he said وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ, that verse of the Quran, that the zalimeen and the oppressors should know and will know what eventually is going to happen to them and where they're going to end up. Today you think you're the winners? Don't worry. These days will end. This life is only 50, 60, 100, 200 years. Then we'll see you on the other side. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Once again, tonight's lecture and majlis is on behalf of our dear sister, Al-Marhuma Al-Hajja Al-Daktora Lamis Harb. If we can all recite one more salawat and a fatiha on her behalf. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Before we start the majlis, I did want to let everybody know that our programs do heavily rely on donations. With that being said, if you do go to the front, because I know we don't carry cash all the time, we do have a card reader that accepts, bank accounts, Zelle, whatever it may be, and you do get a free gift with your donation as well, inshallah. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Brother Ali Jum'ah to recite the Masal of tonight with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد. ثانية ما نحب الزهراء صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. ثالثة لتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Inshallah, those same reminders before we enter into the majlis tonight. Before we start the majlis tonight, and remembering the shuhada specifically now from the nights onwards, let's make an intention right now. Make whatever intention that you want. If you have a problem, if you have an obstacle, if you have a challenge to get towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you feel like something is holding you back, right now, in this moment, take 10 seconds for example. After a salawat, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove obstacles that are keeping you away from tears and Abu Abdullah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We have from one of our big ulama, Ayatollah Bahjat rahmatullahi alayh. He says that crying over the tragedies of the Ahlul Bayt, specifically that of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, is of the mustahabbat, of which there is nothing better than that. So, in relation to that saying from Ayatollah Bahjat, based on the narrations in his opinion, even to the extent that he says, in his opinion, tears for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam is higher than Salatul Layl. The highest form of closeness that we can attain to God in the beginning is taqwa. We all know this. Doing your wajib duties to the best of your ability and giving each wajib responsibility that you have their due right and staying away from the haram. That's the top thing. The ulama tell us after taqwa is Salatul Layl. Salatul Layl is under taqwa. It's a mustahab salat that you pray in the middle of the night, where the Quran describes you want spiritual strides, you seek it in the night. Salatul Layl is in the later parts of the night. Now you have Ayatollah Bahjat, someone like him, telling us that tears for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein are higher than Salatul Layl. Once Shaykh Amin was describing this a few years ago. I'll paraphrase it. He was explaining that sometimes when you rise, even when you rise in the middle of the night, and you stand alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you try to connect with Him through Salatul Layl, through dua, sometimes this hard heart that's been made hard over time with sinning, it's difficult to connect with God at times. It takes time to break that hardened heart. But then he explained that, but when you enter into the majlis of Abu Abdullah and you cry tears for Imam al-Hussein, you feel as if these hearts can connect right away with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, directly with Him. So this could be one of those explanations, maybe why Ayatollah Bahjat says tears are higher than Salatul Layl. It's a quick shortcut towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and changing our hearts. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, our beloved Holy Prophet, and the Ahlul Bayt. It was in your homes that Allah blessed us with guidance and revelation. And upon you descend the angels day in and day out. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Mabloom. Sallallahu alayka ya ayyuha shaheed fi Karbala. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, our beloved Imam al-Hussein, our beloved oppressed Imam. The Imam was slaughtered by the shores of the Euphrates. while his mouth was dry of thirst. Everybody together. Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, Nur Aini, Ya Hussein, Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, Nur Aini, Ya Hussein, Ya Rahmat Allah al-Wasi'a Hussein, our beloved Hussein, light of our eyes Hussein, best mercy of Allah Hussein. On this night we remember the first of the Shuhada, the one who left this world before the Imam even arrived to Karbala, the cousin of the Imam, the ambassador who went to Kufa to gather supporters for Hussein, Muslim ibn Aqil. Sallallahu alayka ya Muslim. We testify, Ya Muslim, that you did what you could and what was in your capacity to help the Imam of your time. May Allah reward the blessed poet who wrote the following lines. I am Muslim and I have a pledge with Hussein to gather support and topple a tyrant's reign. They wrote to us of this tyranny they'd complain, forbidden on us to from requests abstain. O angel of death, when for any soul you call, they answer you at your feet, even tyrants fall. Whereas I am left no assistance, left me them all, and as upon my head calamities befall. I walk alone, no supporter, from street to street. The angel of death calls out, Muslim, your death grief. I feel the clutch of failure upon my heartbeat. Because of me will Hussein face a harsh defeat. It may be so that with martyrdom I'm fated, but my reply, my master Hussein's awaited. By the picture of Hussein killed I am haunted, and so by your coming, O death, I am taunted. Brothers and sisters, picture the scene. Imagine you're in the position of Muslim. Muslim was sent by the Imam to the Kufans who had sent letters committing to follow the rightful leadership of Abu Abdullah. Muslim wanted to see if they were truthful and loyal. He spoke to the people in Kufa. Group after group, they joined Muslims. Some narrations say thousands and thousands gathered and pledged allegiance to him. Muslim, being confident in the support of the Kufans, sent a letter to Abu Abdullah saying, Ya Abu Abdullah, I testify these people are loyal. 30,000 people have pledged allegiance. They are waiting for your lead. Time goes by after the letter is sent. Then Imam al-Hussein gradually makes his way from Mecca towards Kufa. It is said that tens and thousands prayed behind Muslim in the mosque of Kufa, and that a man then dressed like Imam al-Hussein walked in with a group of followers. People thought the Imam had arrived. They rushed to meet him, kiss his hands, and swear allegiance. Just when the people were gathered, the man removed the veil, and it was none other than Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, the cruel governor of Basra, who had impersonated and deceived them. Ibn Ziyad issued an order proclaiming that anyone assisting or even found associating or speaking to Muslim would be beheaded. These people were so frightened that they slowly began to disappear. When Muslim had finished the Isha prayer, it is said that only a few of the thousands of people remained with him. Imagine being with Muslim on the last night before he was apprehended. He had a strong following in the Masjid of Kufa, and now he was all alone. He was a complete stranger in Kufa with no place to go. Now no one even dared to invite him to stay because they feared being seen or exposed to Ibn Ziyad. Imagine yourself being in the same shoes as Muslim. It is said that he stopped at an old lady's house and sent his salams. Her name was Taw'a. She exchanged her salams with him. He then says, "O woman of God, would you give me some water?" She gave him water and beckoned to her home. Taw'a then realized he remained at the doorstep. She asked him and told him, "Go to your family. It's not appropriate for you to sit at my door." Muslim thought to himself, and his heart filled with grief, saying, "O woman of God, I have no family. I have no supporters." The old woman questioned Muslim, found who he was, and gave him asylum as she loved Amir al-Mu'mineen and his family, alayhim as-salam. When she learned who he was, she invited him in and offered him shelter for the night. She gave Muslim food and water and took him to the room where he spent the night. But Taw'a's wretched son, who was in Ziyad's army, who was in Ibn Ziyad's army, finds out that it's Muslim ibn Aqil and calls the authorities to receive awarded money. 300 of Ibn Ziyad's men quickly come and ambush Muslim. The brave warrior of Banu Hashim fights from all directions and even across the rooftops of Kufa. Some narrations say Muslim killed over 100 men single-handedly. They dug a trench to contain him, and when Muslim was so wounded that he couldn't go on any longer, they all attacked him and jumped on him. They chained him and dragged him to the court of Ibn Ziyad. The enemies apprehended him and took him to the governor's castle. Muslim was taken to the top of the castle building in his final moments. Muslim asked for a bit of water. Narrations say Muslim tries to take a sip of the water, but with his lips bleeding from all the wounds, the water becomes dirty and najis. They tell me, "Drink before we throw you to the ground." Each time I sipped in this cup, my own blood I found. I gazed to the land of death, to which Hussein's bound. Ya Hussein, the world has your cousin abandoned. He has poured another cup, but the same thing happens. He realizes this is how he is to meet his Lord, thirsty like all of the other martyrs in Karbala. Before they kill Muslim, he turns towards Mecca. Imagine for a moment what sorrow Muslim feels in his heart at this moment, knowing that his Imam is coming to Kufa to all this betrayal. He began to cry and said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." One of Ibn Ziyad's men said, "Those who demand what you're demanding do not cry, ya Muslim." Muslim replies, "By Allah, I don't cry upon myself. I cry for those of my family who are coming to you. I'm crying for Hussein and the family of Hussein. Ajarakumullah, the cursed enemies, then beheaded Muslim ibn Aqil. They pushed the blessed body off the top of the building. It is said that they then tied the body of Muslim on the back of a horse, and the horse rode around the city with Muslim's body dragging behind. Wa Muslimah wa shahidah wa madlumah. Not long after, news arrives to the camp of Abu Abdullah. When Imam al-Hussein heard the news of Muslim being martyred, he called for the daughter of Muslim, Hamida. He brings her over and sits her on his lap. He caresses her head with his hand as they do to the orphans. Ya Abu Abdullah, you caressed Hamida's hand. But Ya Hussein, after your shahada, who will caress Ruqayya's hand? Who will care for the girls of Hussein? What kind of treatment will the daughters of Hussein be given after their father is killed? Everybody together, Wa Husayna, Wa Ghariba, Wa Shahida, Wa Mazluma. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Everybody together, Ya Husayna, سلام من قلوب أنت فيها. يا حسينا سلام من قلوب أنت فيها. يا حسينا لك الأرواح طرا نفتديها. Ya Husayna, peace be upon you from all the hearts you are in. Wa Ya Husayna, peace be upon you from all the hearts that you are in. To Allah we belong, and to Him is our return, and soon the oppressors will know what change their affairs will take. And the end times will be for the righteous, Ya Allah. In the name of Hussein, by the right of Hussein, by the thirst of Hussein, Ya Allah. We ask you to forgive our sins. We ask you to allow us to shed tears and make a change to these majalis. We ask you to give us a good end on the path of truth. We ask you to fill our hearts with the love of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. We ask you to cure our sick ones and forgive our deceased, Ya Allah. We ask you to bring victory and relief to the oppressed all around the world, specifically those in Palestine, Ya Allah. We ask you to hasten the return of our master, Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, and to make us amongst his loyal supporters, Ya Allah. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Inshallah, we'll read a short latmiya. If you can help me with another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad and stand. Inshallah, if those that want to stand up, please stand up. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Zainab, 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 Zainab. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence, tyrant Zainab, 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 Zainab is the name of patience. Zainab, Zainab taught us for generations her father's will and her mother's fragrance. Kaaba of sorrows and lamentation. Zainab, Zainab, adornment of Ali Mawla. Zainab is the memory of Az-Zahra, her head held high in the land of Karbala, for she was the daughter of Haydara. Zainab, Zainab is the name of patience. Zainab, Zainab taught us for generations her father's will and her mother's fragrance. Kaaba of sorrows and lamentations. Zainab, Zainab, adornment of Ali Mawla. Zainab is the memory of Zahra, her head held high in the land of Karbala, for she was the daughter of Haydara. Zainab, Zainab saw nothing but beauty. She saw Islam as her line of duty. She gave her all wholehearted and truly, remaining firm in the face of cruelty. Zainab, Zainab saw nothing but beauty. Zainab, Zainab saw nothing but beauty. She saw Islam as her line of duty. She gave her all wholehearted and truly, remaining firm in the face of cruelty. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence, tyrant Zainab, 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 witnessed death and fire, Zainab stood firm and did what was required, Zainab, Zainab, crumbled the whole empire, her resistant words made oppressors retire, Zainab, Zainab, witnessed death and fire, Zainab stood firm and did what was required, Zainab, Zainab, crumbled the whole empire, her resistant words made oppressors retire. Zainab, Zainab was just like her father. Zainab, Zainab treasured by her brother. Hassan, Hussein, Abbas and all the others. Greatest symbols for sisters and brothers. Zainab, Zainab was just like her father. Zainab, Zainab treasured by her brother. Hassan, Hussein, Abbas and the others. Greatest symbols for sisters and brothers. Zainab, 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 eloquent, vibrant Zainab, 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 brave, defiant Zainab, 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 silence, tyrant Zainab. زيارة وارث. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة. لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلمسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم، بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله، بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله. لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض، فلعن الله أمة أسرجت والجمت وتهيأت لقتالك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. قصدت حرمك وأتيت إلى مشهدك، أسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لدي أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد، وأن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. Everybody together. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أبي الفضل العباس وعلى الحوراء زينب وعلى محمد وآله الطاهرين ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.